how important is it to not mislead the public?
Important, but keep in mind that, everybody's going to spin their side of anything.
Mhm.
Think about, I have kids, right? They come to me, they go, "Hey, Dad, got to talk to you about something. So I broke this thing, but we needed a new one," right? I mean, it's like you're always going to spin your side. So there's a
Right.
difference between saying something that is entirely false. Did something break? No, it didn't break, when you know it did. And saying, "Look, it broke, but we needed a new one and they're on sale." And so how you present your side is very different than telling a complete falsehood.
Okay. So the reason I ask that is because a lot of people say that Trump, exaggerates or lies. And for you who have direct knowledge and have been the one to sort of present some of these facts or lies or whatever people will call them, I'm just curious about your opinion on how that goes down in history.
Well, again, there's a exaggeration is not a lie. That's why there's a difference between exaggerating and lying.
Okay.
Now, the funny thing is, I've thought about this a lot. I'm going to present my case to you on something that I found fascinating. When you turn on the morning shows, right? And I flip around every day because I'm sort of a news junkie addict. How many times do you see something about the story everyone is talking about? Right?
Mhm.
Is it the story that everyone's talking about? No, it's not. That's their way of selling it. And I'm trying to think of a couple other examples, but that's the one that really always comes to mind to me. Everybody's talking about this. There's something that everybody's weighing in on. No, everybody's not.
Mm.
Are they lying?
No,
Or
I
is
see what you're saying. It's
but
just a spin on what they want to get the story out, their
but
narrative.
why is but I find so again, it's to me as someone who has taken the arrows. Why is that not a lie? Why is it when they start a show off and say the story everyone is talking about?
Mhm.
Well, I wasn't talking about it. A lot of times I'm like, I didn't even know about it. How was
Right.
I talking about it? How
Well,
was
they'll argue that that's opinion or whatever.
but when Trump says, "I think it's going to be the greatest ever," or "I had the biggest this," why is that not? I mean, so it's different when he says it versus when they do it. And that's what I think is interesting is that the media gives themselves a pass on so many issues when they're wrong, when they deceive people, when they spread misinformation, right? Think about this. The White House this weekend, NBC News reported the president was having this big confab with the family at Camp David, whatever, right?
Mm.
And it was this breaking news story, this big scoop. And then the White House put out the schedule from earlier this week that said, it was, I think, June 23rd. And they put out on their Twitter feed and said, "We put this schedule out a week ago saying that we're going to Camp David as a family to take a big family photo with Annie Leibovitz, I think is her name."
Mhm.
And then NBC was making it seem as though this was an emergency meeting of the family at Camp David to decide its political future.
Right.
Well, okay. The White House went after them and said, simply not true. The media does this all the time. It's just that they want to call a group of people liars. And like I said earlier, with Biden, it's called gaffes. And yet with people they don't like, it's lies.
Right. I totally hear what you're saying, but I guess it goes back to there are certain facts you can go with. Like when you were working for the White House, let's go back to the one where we were talking about the crowd size, right?
Yeah.
It became a big joke, and SNL did it a couple times, and it's like
I
there's
heard that.
yeah. Did you? Okay, so there are facts as to how many people showed up, and then we think that it seemed like the biggest crowd size ever, right? I mean, do you see the difference?
I do, again, I don't want to relitigate something from 7 years ago, but
Of
since
course.
we wait, but just so you understand, first of all, I've said, God, if I could take a mulligan or a redo on that day, I would, right? But just so you understand what we tried to do that day, and I led that team, so this is on me,
Mhm.
right? I'm not trying to obfuscate or not. I take responsibility for what I said and what I did that day. But so you understand kind of what we're talking about now. The goal was to communicate the interest in that day. We started the morning with a couple outlets from CNN, NBC, trying to minimize the president's win and support. And so
Mhm.
what I was doing that day was saying, hey, look, it's not just the people, because everyone focused on the crowd size there. And I was like, look at the audience overall in person and overseas. Because what I was trying to do is say there are technologies available live streaming on Twitter, for example, being one of them. And there were other live streams that weren't, frankly, technologically available 8 years prior. I didn't actually, and now again, was it the smartest way to do this? No. What I'm trying to say to you is that I wasn't trying to make the case. Look at how many people are in a square mile of the Capitol versus how many people were in a square mile. I have eyes. I knew that. I could see that. What I was trying to say is, hey, look at the number of people. I was getting calls from, different media execs that their audience online was bigger than it ever was, and da-da-da-da, and hey, this technology wasn't even available in the past. And I was like, oh, okay. I can now make the case that the interest was greater because it shouldn't. I mean, it's like saying that more people watched it than George Washington. Well, of course they did, because there was no TV or internet back in the founding of our country.
Right.
I didn't think, and again, it's not an excuse. It's just to give you a sense. In a rushed time frame, we were trying to minimize the stupid critique that was coming about something so trivial that happened. Now, remember that same day, just so we're clear, the reporter went into the Oval Office and lied about the bust of Martin Luther King being removed, trying to make this a racial thing, when in fact the bust of Martin Luther King had been moved right behind him. He just didn't turn his head around to see it. And I spent the afternoon putting out a fire trying to claim that somehow President Trump had removed the bust of Martin Luther King. But no one cared that the media had misled them and tried to stoke racial tensions.
Right.
Because, well, gosh, we'll just move on from that. We'll focus on what Spicer said. And I get it, but just they do stuff all the time and they forgive each other. They minimize their own mistakes because it's not even equal, right? So Corinne Jean-Pierre gets up there every day and says word salads that I can't even decipher, and they say nothing. When I was at the White House, literally the Playboy correspondent got a CNN contract because of a sparring session he had with Sarah Sanders. Now, to most people, I hope that you at least take cover knowing that Playboy has a correspondent, so now you can go read the articles. That gives you some cover, men out there, if that's really what you need to claim that that's why you get it.
Right.
But the reality is that tells you about what the media value, not the sourcing, not the quality of the reporting. But hey, look, you made a jackass out of yourself in the briefing room. We're going to give you a cable contract.
Right. Okay. I totally appreciate your explanation there.
No, thank you for the therapy session. I appreciate that.
So I do want to ask what it was like to have that job in the White House, because for people like me, we all became huge fans of you, whether or not we liked what was going on in the White House and the chaos in the country at the moment. We tuned in every day just to see you because we found you humorous, empathetic. I loved you. I thought you were great.
I'm glad I entertained you. Thank you.
Well, you entertained most of the American public, making it all the way to SNL. By the way, did you watch those SNL things?
So I'll tell you the quick story on this. Yes, eventually. I'd woken up the Sunday after that aired. Obviously, I didn't stay up to watch Saturday Night Live. I don't mean to make myself sound old, but with the job that I had, I cherished sleep. I had 2 young kids at the time. And we were in church, and I had 2 phones at the time. One was a personal, one was the White House. The White House didn't have texts at the time. I don't know if they do now. And so my personal phone just started buzzing like I was getting texts in because I was in church and I had silenced it like a good Catholic. And so I knew something was going on, but I knew that it wasn't that important because I wasn't getting called on my White House phone. And I get out and I see like, dude, that was funny. Oh my God. So I rush home after mass. Normally we used to get donuts at Dunkin' Donuts. My kids were like, are we stopping? And I'm like, no, we're going straight home. And I do DVR the show. As I said, I'm a news junkie. I DVR probably way too much stuff. So I DVR and I look at it and it wasn't the cold open at that first one. It was like I don't know, 15, 20 minutes in, and I watched it and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So that's kind of when I knew that my day was going to take a big turn on a Saturday. And so
did you laugh? Did you think it was funny?
I did. I mean, that first one was funny. And again, the week that I had, I felt like it was sort of like cathartic. It was just okay. At least there's something fun. Did I, like, on a professional level? I'm not so sure. On a personal level, I was like, okay, kind of deserve that. But yeah, I got a kick out of it. And, I was like, okay, lesson learned.
Right.
Take your spanking and go on.